Okay, I know we've done a lot of training. I know that this is our last module, and it is in some ways has the most complexity or the most things that you need to understand. We are going to move through it quickly, but I really need you to kind of hunker down, remain focused, get this last piece of information, make sure you've got all these things down pat so that we can really be efficient this year. Talking in this module about our Affinity business, our largest customer, USAA, our second largest customer, Navy Federal Credit Union, the Chase program, our own THS program, they all fit into what is called a membership program. People are members of something and they get a real estate benefit for being a member of that program. That's what you're talking about when you say Affinity. They make good sense, and Cardis put this slide together, and you know what? It makes a lot of sense to me. This is a differentiator. There are commercials on Navy Fed and on USAA all over our marketplace. Any chance we have to attach ourselves to that is a good thing from a recognition standpoint. These referrals are a reduction in advertising costs to all of us. Certainly they come with referral fees, but they don't come up with the heavy having to blanket out a lot of marketing in order to identify customers. These leads are pre-screened. We'll talk about that. I used to publish the highest, or at least the average across the country. I don't publish that anymore. I'm publishing our statistics because we're the ones that people are starting to reach for. I can tell you that not one of our full anagrams converted our USAA business at any less than 46%. And we had two offices who over the course of the entire year last year converted 58% of all of the USAA leads that were sent to them. 58%. That is enormous, and both of those offices are high volume offices. These referrals create the increased market share that we talked about, and they create that non-freight customer that we were talking about. That's why we're in this thing. So specifically, let's talk about our Movers Advantage program, which is the USAA program. This is a really important slide. I hope that everybody kind of pays attention to this thing. The blue line is talking about NAR existing home sales in the country. You can see from 2006 to 2008, it experienced quite a drop. Then from 2008 to 2012, we've had a couple little spikes, but it's remained fairly flat to down since that standpoint, starting to make a little bit of a change now. Look at the difference with the USAA program. They experienced that little bit of fall off in 2008, but boy, did they do something about it. Look at the growth that this program has had. It's grown since 2008 at about 23,000 settlements up to 39,000 settlements. They've had more than a 50% growth of their program in a market that most people are really struggling in. So I know that this thing comes with challenges. I just want to make sure that we understand when we are part of this program that we take a moment to be grateful about it. And I know, boy, you know, when you're running around and you got a challenge and you got whatever, it's hard to remember. But there's tons of people in our marketplace that would just love to be in the position that we're in. Let's always remind ourselves of that, work through all of our issues, and keep benefiting from our partnership. So how are they actually getting to the amount of closings that they did? Well, you can see in 2011, about 107,000 of their members said, hey, you know what? I'm ready to do something. I want to move. Well, you know what? They don't necessarily put that person into the program. I know sometimes we think, sure seems like they did. You know, this person wasn't all that ready. But they are scrubbing these leads, and they are actually only making out of that 73,000 placements out to the network. So these leads are scrubbed. There's a connection that's being formed. There's a loyalty that's built to the USAA program, and it filters down to us that way. I think it's an important slide to see visually actually what they're doing, because I know we've all received maybe the internet customer that they couldn't really get in touch with, who wasn't all that ready, and that kind of dominates our mind. But you can see that there's a real system to how they're actually making these placements. You can also start and end. Think about how the referral starts and ends. And the referral starts in the USAA or the Affinity world with service. That's why they connected to this thing. I know that they get a cashback benefit, and a lot of people are actually driven by the cashback, but most of the people contacting this program are contacting it because they trust USAA, they bought their insurance through them, they bought other financial products, they've had great service, and they expect great service from us. Our responsibility is to make sure that they get it. I don't care whether or not something else in the transaction went wrong. I don't care whether or not and don't care is a bad word. I'm sorry for saying that. We have to go past other problems that happen in the transaction. If that happens to be that, a year ago they were probably in their worst position as far as service on their mortgage side, that does not excuse us from the service on our side. We have to step up and overcome. And that's what we do in this program. Remember who you're helping. That's huge. If you really want to provide good service, you got to think about who this typical buyer or seller is in the Affinity world. They've probably moved multiple times if they've been transferred to base by base. And at this point, you're starting to see that a lot of people have experienced multiple tours overseas. And I can't begin, and unless you've been overseas, I wouldn't try to begin to explain what that person is feeling. But it's understandable that that's a different mindset. If you have experienced war and you're coming back and you're trying to buy a house, it's just a lot. It's an awful lot. And it's a huge decision. And, understanding the needs of these clients and working with the spouse and really identifying yourself to them and being patient with them is going to really pay off. So we mentioned this thing, Home Circle. Home Circle is a site on USAA. If you remember, you can click on and you can see all of the listings that are available in the market. You get all kinds of things about how to prepare for becoming a first-time buyer. Our services are really sold on this. Sorry to see the Caldwell Banker slide there, but this is the one that they provided to me. It has mobile applications. This is a great program. The information going to this is provided by our company for this local market. It's just a direct feed to the MRIS. So in general, this information is very strong. Let's identify two areas that we need to address. And the way that we need to address them, USA is our partner. They have a great tool. They want their members using that tool, and it's fine with us, and we think that they should. But there are two small things as technology gets built out we need to be aware of. First of all, listings that are under contract but still accepting offers show as active on Home Circle. They're working on doing something to mark them as under contract, but if you can set that expectation up front and say, hey, awesome tool, definitely recommend you use it. Just want to let you know that occasionally it's USA's position that if something that's under contract is accepting offers, they want that up there so you can look at it. Just know that often does not work out, and that accepting offers is sometimes they're not really accepting offers. I'll always do my best for you. You just reach out to me, but trust that I have the information where this came from. I can see it even in more detail. You need to explain that and set that expectation. The other thing that can happen on this is the member can press a button when they're looking at a listing and say, hey, I'd like my Movers Advantage agent to see that I'm interested in this listing. Well, currently they're going to be building out a realtor portal, and when they build that out, you'll actually be able to log on, see all of your customers. Any customer that agreed that they wanted you to be able to see this information, you'd be able to see everything that they clicked on. You'd be able to see what they're searching. You'd just be able to see what they were requesting, and it would all come directly to you. That's not built yet. So right now, that email that they're generating when they click on a listing, when the client clicks on a listing and says, I want my agent to know about this. That email gets sent to USAA, forwards it to Cardis, who forwards it to our relocation department, who forwards it to you. I would highly suggest that you say, hey, listen, anytime you're interested in a property, I want you to make sure that you ask me about it. I have access to everything, but send the email directly to me, because that other way is going to cause a time delay, and I don't want that to happen for you. Great product, they're fixing it, they're building it out, but for now, why don't you send that to me? That's the way we want to address these two things, and if you address them, you're going to save yourself a lot of service concerns. Other things that can happen early on in the process. Maybe the member is not willing to sign a buyer's agreement. So our standpoint's a little different on this. We have a contractual relationship that we made with Cardis that said, we'll do this. And Cardis has no problem with us getting a buyer's agreement, but if they won't sign the buyer's agreement, we still need to work with them. That's different than how we often treat some of our other business. There's no problem with you explaining the benefits to them, selling this, and trying to get a buyer's agreement. Just understand that if ultimately they won't sign one, we still need to work with them. So often I'm told, hey, USAA told them not to sign this buyer's agreement. Are you kidding me? Well, here's what USAA's policy is, because I went to their summit agreement and I listened to what they said. And at that summit meeting, they said, look, it's our policy that we don't want to speak for or against this. And we understand what the benefit is. We're just not comfortable telling our members that they should or should not sign it. We also think that it shouldn't be forced upon a member. So if ultimately the member says they don't want to sign it, we expect you, Century 21 New Millennium, to respect that. And we also request that should the member want to be released from that buyer's agreement, that you will do that. Here's where that gets confused. A, you're training a lot of people to talk on the phone, and they might just not get it right. And they might actually say, oh no, you shouldn't sign that. That's not what they're supposed to say, but it does happen. It also can come across as that's what they said, when what they were really saying is, you don't have to sign that. If they're asked a direct question about it, they'll say, work with your agent on that, but you don't have to sign it. And that might get confused in how that person communicates what was said to them to you. But here's what you do if it actually happens. If they've actually told that client, hey, you shouldn't sign this. Well, first of all, recognize that the damage is done and don't swim upstream. You want to email relo@c21nm.com and let us know exactly that happened. Here's the two things that we'll do. We'll contact Cardis. If we can get it addressed for that one referral, we're going to get it addressed. We'll have that same person call back. But the bigger thing that it does is it identifies the person that said it, so that person gets the proper training and can make sure that they're not saying that again. So I understand that happens. It's a policy change and evolution. Thing is, we're not going to be heavy-handed. If you are aggressive and sell the benefits, that's fine. We're not going to be heavy-handed about forcing people to do it. Also, I get what happens if the member will not get pre-approved. Well, I'll tell you what, we are really pretty tough about wanting you to honor the source, and so we've gotten a lot more involved in this area. We want you to get a pre-approval, and we want you to get a pre-approval with USAA, and we want you to be aggressive about selling the benefits of that. However, if you get somebody on day one, remember, we have not established the rapport with these people yet. Their rapport is with USAA. If they had rapport with us, they'd have come to us directly. They came to USAA because they weren't sure and they wanted to get a trusted source, and on day one they're being asked to provide financial information or sign something. Just be empathetic with that. Show them a day of awesome service, and then sit down with them again at the end of the day. And at the end of that day, you want to ask again, and you want to be very clear about what the benefit is to the client. You know what? We may see a house that's aggressively priced in your price range that's likely to produce multiple buyers. And we don't want to lose because we're scrambling around trying to get a pre-approval. We need to come with lock, stock, and barrel and put the best offer out there on the table, and that absolutely includes a pre-approval. Here's the number. Why don't we get that taken care of now? The other thing that you want to explain is the obligation. You know what? As a licensed real estate professional, I'm really supposed to make sure that everybody that I'm walking into a house has the ability to buy that house. And that's an obligation that I have through my licensing, and I take that very seriously, and I hope that you would respect that, and I think that we should probably go ahead and do this. If you've done that, you've explained these benefits, I think that you are going to be far more successful. There's still going to be people that say no. At that point, you go to your branch leader and you sit down with the branch leader and say, these are the things that I tried, this is what the service that I provided, and your branch leader can then make a request to close it out if they feel it's not viable. If they feel that it's viable and you feel that it's viable, you've just got to work through that situation. And hopefully, we'll get better and better at helping you get through that. We can certainly involve and explain and have Cardis call them and explain the benefit to this. Remember that we talked about service. Providing service, we'll talk about that all year, but there's actually mechanics to the service. So you have to go through every step of this. Up front, you want to set expectations. You want to show them that survey right up front and say, here's why you came to USAA. And then you want to let them know, hey, listen, all along through this process, it's so important to USAA, to Century 21 New Millennium, to myself, that you get that service that you wanted, that I'm going to keep asking you. I hope that's okay with you. You want to reset those expectations at pending, and especially if we're doing new construction. New construction equals worst service ratings, period. Let me say that again. New construction equals worst service ratings, period. They don't understand it. They don't understand that the person at the new construction site is taking over a lot of this process. Don't let the perception be that you disappeared, because that's often what comes back in the survey. Don't let that happen to you. Obviously, you want to show them a copy of the survey at the settlement. Then you're going to get an email from us that's automated that says, hey, congratulations, we just did a deal with USAA. Is there any reason why we wouldn't want to follow up with this member and remind them of the survey? You need to be flat honest with us right there, because we're going to send all kinds of reminders to them to remind them to return that survey. Tell us not to remind them. It's okay. If you want to put an explanation of why you're telling us that, I understand that, and that's great. But truthfully, even if you just said do not send, that's okay also. Nobody's going to pester you on it. And in fact, if we do get a bad survey return, and at least you told us not to remind that person about it, we're going to look up on it a lot more favorably. Finally, the customer's then going to start to get some emails from us to say, hey, you know what? It's coming in the mail. It should be here in a couple of days. If you could fill it out, that'd be great. You're copied on that email. It's going to mean a lot more coming from you than it does coming from me. So if you can jump in right behind that email and say, hey, we talked about this. It's really important. Could you do it? That's awesome. We appreciate that. Then finally, 3 months after the settlement, they're going to get another email if they haven't done the survey yet saying, you know what, moving's a busy time. Not sure what happened. Maybe you lost it. Would you like to get another survey? Again, you're copied on that. Need you to jump in and ask them to do it. They'll get that one more time at 6 months, and then we let it go. So there's a lot of ways that we can follow up with these surveys. Key points to remember. The key question is about their overall experience, not about you. And the key question is question number 1, and that's overall experience. So if you don't point that out to people, they might be thinking they gave you a great survey when in truth they did not. The other thing you got to remember is that it's the military background to think that 7 out of 10 is a very good rating. Nobody gets 10 out of 10 in the military. So you got to change that mindset with them and say, hey, I know where you came from. You don't give a 10. But in this world, if I don't get a 10, a 9 is actually bad. And so if you think I did a good job, I really need that. You also want to make sure that you remember that there's a mortgage survey that's given at the table. That's different. So if they have any kind of issue with the mortgage side, you need to make sure that they address that in the mortgage survey. Our survey is sent by the U.S. mail, and it arrives about 3 weeks after you turn the final sale in. You can also, if they had any concerns that were not about you, hey, write those comments on the front. You should definitely provide that feedback, and they need to know. But if you did feel I did a good job, remember that that overall experience is the one that I really need. We'll send out the all the reminders on the survey. You remember have to tell us not to send it if you think there's an issue, and if you chime in behind our emails, you're going to do a great job on the service side. Talking a little bit about our mortgage process and procedures. First of all, we always got to remember the source of the lead and do our best to honor it. We've got to know enough about the mortgage products that are offered or where to find them. For USAA, it's usaa.com. Very simple. We want to try to get people pre-qualified whenever possible. We expect that we do a save the deal. We're going to talk about that. And because this is a heavy VA requirement, VA profile, you really need to understand VA loans. And if you don't, make sure that you get yourself brushed up on that. Talk to your branch leader. We can definitely get you training on some of the VA documentation because it's very important. So honoring the source. This is our save the deal process, and this is how simply we look at it. If it's USAA, we need to do everything that we can to make it USAA. If it's NFCU, we need to do everything that we can to make it NFCU. And if it's any other source, we need to make sure that that goes to First County. Occasionally, our corporate buyers will come with direct reimbursement through Cardis Home Loans or Wells Fargo. You're never going to be able to compete with that because direct reimbursement saves them so much money. Not really concerned about that. It's one kind of funky area. But in general, if you can just think USAA equals USAA, NFCU equals NFCU, if it's not one of those two, it should be going to First County. And if somebody's not doing one of those three things, I need to let people know right away. And all I need to do is email relo@c21nm.com with our subject line that we do, put save the deal, member's name, member's number, and get it to us and tell us what's going on with that. What we need you to do, and this is the key differentiator, we need you to do that before you bring in another mortgage company. And if it can be said to you, hey, do you have another mortgage I'd like to shop and compare? Do you have somebody else? Your answer to that should be, yes, we do. In fact, our in-house lender is fantastic. But before I connect you to that, USAA has been really good to you. That's why you came through the program. They've been really good to me. Let's get your questions to the local representative and make sure that that's the best place for you to go. And if that's the best place for you to go, let's stay there because that's the way we should do this. And if not, then I'll connect you after we have that conversation. Does that work for you? Work on your scripting for that because it's going to happen and it's difficult. But we promise to get back to you really quickly and tell you whether we can or cannot help you save that deal. Pointing it right back out, the process, right? Save the deal before you recommend anybody else. There's the things that we need to do. The body should have the loan number in it if that's possible. And you also want to include settlement date if you know that, and also the best contact number to get in touch with that client. Particulars for USAA. We have local representation. Please, we ask you, I know that he's out in the offices, John Carney. He'll give you his information. We ask that you go directly through us, and here's why. We've got all these people in this company. There are systems and processes and things that Cardis has that can help a lot of these things move forward. I try not to go to John unless it's really important. I like John to think that if I'm contacting him, he needs to get on top of that. And so far, that relationship has really worked. I want you to remember the phones at USAA Mortgage and at most mortgage centers are recorded. And this is something that happens a couple times a year, and I hate to see it. You know, you can get frustrated with a processor, and sometimes it's deservingly so. But you got to leave the emotion out. Don't take the bait. Don't say something because you're going to take a frustrating situation where your client's not getting the service or something's not happening. You go ahead and say something on the phone, and the next thing you know, you're answering for why you said that on the phone instead of helping the client. I don't want that to happen to you. Just treat everybody like they're the president of the company. leave your emotion out of things, focus on how to get from point A to point B, and you'll do fine. Some of the things that often happen sometimes with originations, because they're a large lender, the quotes on the taxes and our local quotes are not right. If that happens, don't address it by saying, geez, I don't know why they did that. I wish they could get a clue. That would be a bad thing to say. That's our partner. That's our client. Rather, you can say, you know what? They're a great company. They're a big national lender. They're probably using national averages. Let's go to the title company and get you the local averages. I understand that that's, we all would like to see that get fixed, but in the meantime, recommend that you go to the title company and recommend that you address it that way. Last thing that's in particular to USAA, their FHA product is called Military Home Loans. It's a joint venture with Wells Fargo. So if somebody ends up in Military Home Loans, that's a USAA loan. And it's not being sent to Wells Fargo or somewhere else because they're overloaded. It's their FHA product was joint ventured with Wells Fargo, and it's called Military Home Loans. We have a mortgage best practices document. You have that document in your handouts. Boy, read through that thing. It's really been drilled down to try to help you to the best of our ability. Gives you all the key numbers, the things that you need to do, ad application, how it needs to happen, who needs to do it. The member being, live with the representative is the only way to make sure that date is locked in. Read through this document. If you don't, it's gonna cause you headaches. The USAA mortgage portal. So there's actually a portal where you can check in and see how the progress of the loan is going. Here's some of the key things to remember. First of all, you got to remind your member to give you permission, and that's probably, unless they really understand it, they probably won't. They'll be concerned that you can see confidential information. You can't. All you see is really the processing of the work. So you explain, hey, I'm quarterbacking your transaction. This is a way I can see what's going on. I can't see any of your, confidential information. I just know whether or not they need something or what the status of it is. To get onto the portal, the link is down at the bottom. We'll send you that link over and over again in updates. Save that into your favorites. Make sure you know how to get to that site real quickly, because all you need is the borrower's name and the loan application, and you're right in. And when you get right in, it's going to tell you exactly who your processor is. It's going to tell you their direct line and their direct fax number. Write those down and you get used to using that. Also understand that there could be a delay in updating. It's dependent upon how busy USAA is and the quality of the processor. They're building out using this tool just like we are, and they have people who are really good at it, and they have people that are mediocre at it. So let's keep supporting it, checking it, using it as a communication piece. Talk a little bit about Navy Federal. We are the largest Navy Federal account in the entire country. The largest. So on top of having a huge USAA presence, we are the #1 account for Navy Federal. And I think that that's really important because this is a growing program. You can see their advertising, their commitment to a different model of sort of local branches. There's lots of things that they offer. It's pretty much the same model. There's a expectation for service. There's a cashback benefit that's provided. There's great mortgage products that it's tied to, and the expectation and the reason why they got into this business is to hopefully generate leads for us so that we would help them stay into the Navy Federal mortgage product. There's a help desk at Navy Fed. Certainly that's something that you can use. We also have local loan officers who are in our market. And you can use any Navy Federal Credit Union local loan officer that you meet and be completely compliant with the program. So if there's somebody that you're comfortable with, you can do that. There's also contact information for main people locally here. David Chandler in Virginia and Mary Rydell in Maryland. It's important that you know that it's okay to get in touch with any one of these people. All we ask is remember that reload at, copy it. Make sure that we know that you're trying to save the deal or that you're experiencing an issue so that we are prepared for it, can help track it, make sure that we're not, sort of the last second, oh my God, nothing else worked out, now there's an hour to closing, can you help me? If we're connected to it all along, we can kind of see it, and we can help you along the way. Navy Federal is the same, except for they're going to get their questionnaire by email. So it's a lot faster. It's within a couple of days of you turning in that final sale paperwork, they're going to get this. And the question is still overall service. That's what's really important. That question is number 11. You can see there's very specific questions about the real estate agent. Those are really important too. But don't forget about number 11, and don't forget that that's not intuitive to your client. So you have to remember to tell them question number 11 is the one that's really important to me. They're going to know question 10 is important to you. Key points. Remember to ask for excellence. Again, it's a military profile. Giving out excellence is not something that they hand out like candy. Remember to chime in behind their emails. Remember that the survey is actually sent by email. It's a differentiator between the USAA and the NFCU program. We have a goal as a company to do a certain number of agent-generated referrals. That's part of that all-in thing that I was talking about. That's part of the metrics. And the object of it, the reasons why you would want to put somebody into the program. First of all, it's just a commitment you're making. If you're going to partner with somebody and you're going to take the referrals, then when you identify somebody that's eligible for their benefits, you got to put them in the program. It's just the right thing to do. But on top of that, the things that are really good for us are if you don't have a very secure relationship with that client or not sure, it's going to secure that client to our company. That's really important differentiator, not just to you, but to our company. If that client calls Navy Federal Credit Union, doesn't say anything about who they're working with, and Coldwell Banker happens to be up on the screen one of their 3 weeks, all of a sudden that's somebody's been referred to Coldwell Banker, and now you've got a competitor. So don't let that happen to you. Obviously, if they identify you as the customer, or if you enroll them into the program, that allows you to make sure that they actually come to you. Your customer is going to trust you that you brought forward this program for them, and it's going to reduce your referral fee from 47.5% to 37.5%. It's also going to ensure that you don't pay any additional commission charge, because you can't charge it to USAA and NFCU clients. The company will pay it, not you. So that's a big benefit to making sure that they stay in the program. The key to getting an AGR is not your working with the client, it's your active involvement in enrolling them to the program. So you need to be actively enrolling them to the program prior to Cardis sending it to us. And that has to be time-stamped by email, and guess where you send that? You send it to relo@c21nm.com. You have a form that we gave you. If you don't have that form on you, if you don't know the member number because it's a USAA client, send it to us. Timestamp it, get it to us so we know. That way, if it's somehow that person picks up the phone and calls, and I've had it happen with my own people, if that person picks up the phone and calls, you have a timestamp thing that says, hey, no, we were working on getting them into the program. If you don't have that in writing, there is no proof. There's none. That's the differentiator. Your email to us prior to it coming in. Also, just remember that with agent-generated referrals, just because they're not using the mortgage company does not mean that they don't get their cash back benefit. That's a totally separate piece. So there's a real estate side to this, and there's a mortgage side to this, and they're not tied together. They would not be allowed to be tied together as part of RESPA. So somebody who's in the program can still get their cash back benefit even if they're not using USAA mortgage. Couple of policy changes for this year. One of the things that I referred to earlier on is if you put an AGR in and that person ends up doing a transaction, there's a $250 charge that has to pay for the additional commission. That's not going to be charged to you. The company's going to take care of that. So that's a big differentiator. something that was a takeaway, and I know it was a takeaway, and have had varying degrees of how people perceive this, is that agent-generated referrals don't count as a placement for the Friends and Family program. Go back to those screens of how much we've grown our business. Go back to the screens where we're triple platinum, where we're the number 3 trying to be the number 1 company. With all of that increase in business comes increased responsibility. Increased responsibility in this network means increases to our metric goals. We have to make that friends and family policy on its own volition. Our goal is aggressive enough now that we just have to be able to make that separate from our AGR metric. Our AGR metric also gets us points to platinum. And in fact, we would not be platinum in CTE or in NMM had we not done so well in the AGR side. So I want everybody to understand that this is a metric that is part of platinum. It's separate. A few years back, hey, we just needed to get some momentum. We needed to get going, and we needed to get people involved. I had to separate these things out. I looked at it very closely. I understood its impact. I hope that you can appreciate that. I hope that you'll work on picking up lots of AGRs, not with your next door neighbor, but with that guy that jumped on our website and clicked on your listing because our name is plastered all over the USAA website, because they saw USAA and said, oh, let's go click on the New Millennium website. I hope that you're meeting people and that you can use the marks of USAA and NFCU to expand your presence so that when your next door neighbor does end up having to go into this program, it's not as bad of a takeaway for you. And there's simple questions that you can ask. Are you part of an organization that offers you a real estate benefit? Have you or a member of your family served in the military? Are you a part of a military organization that has relocation benefits? Who are you planning to secure your financing with? Boy, if they've already got USA or NFCU financing, that's a ding, 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 ding. Get them into the program, because it's surprising that they're not in the program yet. And so that's an opportunity for you. I'll end on a slide that we've already put. I know I ended on AGRs, and AGRs are a tough thing on an individual basis. One transaction, it's very hard to accept it. But think of these big pictures, and think about that commitment letter that we're asking you to sign, and make sure that you can do everything that's on that commitment letter. Make sure that you see the big picture for you, and be all in, and we will kill it. Have a great year.